Good morning, happy Sunday, Sussex Squad Nation. I hope you guys are feeling really well and you're enjoying the beautiful weather and happy Memorial Day weekend. What a glorious day.
I don't know.
How
I
are
don't know
you
what
guys
you're
doing?
talking about because you're saying glorious weather, but look at you with all these layers on. Why are you so
It
cold
is
for?
so cold in here. I mean, I'm sorry. It's really, it's warm
You're like 3
outside,
months
but it's
behind schedule.
really cold in here. So, and I'm cold because I have not gotten any sleep. I was actually traveling. So, that's what's going on. So, how are you, Charles?
Not bad, not bad. It was, as you mentioned before, it was an absolutely glorious day outside. So I had a chance to do a little bit of yard work. So that's always good. Definitely a little tired, but that's good because it just means that we've been productive. So just moving, running, making it happen. So it's all good.
Wonderful. The flowers look absolutely beautiful. So, let me say that. Josh.
Well, I'm looking
Okay.
Charles-ish
It's been
today.
a long, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was still traveling. Didn't make it until 4 in the morning. So it's like now, just get ready and prepared for a podcast. So I'm tired. So how are you, Josh?
I'm doing well. I am grateful as always for another week, another day above ground, another bit of time to spend doing things that matter with people that matter. But I think to sum it up more precisely in terms of how I'm feeling at this particular moment, as some people may guess from my voice, is actually from a joke that Charles found just earlier today.
Do tell. What's the joke?
Yeah, so the joke is actually pretty funny. I found it online. So what they had is basically it was a little Pikachu, and he was in bed, in a hospital bed, and he says that survived COVID, but pollen is taking me out.
Okay.
So right now I'm the allergies are in, but outside of that I'm wonderful. And you, besides being cold and tired, what else is going on? Are you good? Are you how are things?
Good. A bit down for many reasons. We lost one of our queen. You guys know that. But I did have a chance to spend some time with my mom. And so that was really wonderful. I get to see her and, spend many nights being in the same bed and chatting and talking and just really enjoy my moment with her. Just, I can't get enough of my mom. I really adore that woman. I love her. So God bless me to be able not just to have a mother like her, but to be able to spend time with her. So yeah, that was special and get to see my sister and my niece. And so it was all good. And I'm back now and here I am. So Charles, talk to me. So what has been going on in the Sussex Squad world, the Sussex? And so I'm sure we have Chochinelli Report. What is Chochinelli have to report it this week?
So what's happening? So sure. So for our famous report, there's a couple, two sad elements, I will say. The first is that, as I mentioned a couple times now, that there was an older lady. She was 81 years old. Her name was Helen Holland from Essex. And unfortunately, she was struck by a police motorcycle who was escorting Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. And she passed away.
Wow.
So I don't know what was happening, but they must have been cruising because she was in a coma. She suffered multiple cuts and abrasions as well as multiple broken bones and had irreversible brain damage. So, wow. I mean, they really must have really popped this lady. So I feel so bad for her. So that's just terrible.
What is being reported and, just try to keep, checking on what's going on. But it seems like there's not that many things that report on it. And the fact that, the royals are running left and right, it seems like it's the running of the bulls.
The bulls. Mm-hmm.
You know how the bulls, they run in Spain. So it seems like the royals are everywhere. But right at this time, you would think that, at least after an accident like that, you would have been chill out. But I'm not reading anything on it at all. Beside that, one of the family members saying that, it wasn't um, whoever, what's her name?
Helen Holland.
No, no, not the lady
Oh,
that died.
Sophie, the Duchess of
The
Edinburgh.
Sophie is not her fault. But what I'm thinking and what we all thinking that, what, there's allegedly we think that, there is some money, in the background just to keep these people quiet, not to say anything. But, I'm not so sure what is going on. Is grandma is in danger? Are they killing grandmas now? What is happening?
Yeah,
Why
it's
there's always something it's happening? It's like, is our grandmothers safe on the street with the royals? And I'm just asking a question because for whatever the reason, the seniors who supposedly their support system, they're constantly getting hate by someone from the royals family. If it's not, the late Philip, it's this woman now, and I'm sure before there's a few more. So what is going on? Is grandma is safe?
yeah. I think the our older generation should basically stay off the streets and sidewalks if they see a royal motorcade coming.
Oh
That's
my
for sure.
goodness, it is insane. I mean, I feel like our grandmothers, great grandmothers, are just not safe on the street with the royals, if that's the way it's going. So what is going on in the report?
So the next one is that, as we all know, Prince Harry actually loses the legal bid to pay for police protection while in the UK. So I'm reading from a CNN expert here. So Prince Harry has lost a legal challenge seeking the right to pay for police protection while in the UK. London's High Court ruled on Tuesday in a series of lawsuits that the Duke of Sussex is pursuing in the country. The Duke was challenging the decision to withdraw his police protection after he stepped down as a working royal. The judge, Mr. Justice Chamberlain, on Tuesday denied a legal bid by the Duke to review the decision not to allow him to pay for police protection out of his own funds. The important kind of cliffhanger here is a separate legal effort to review the original decision to strip him of taxpayer-funded protection is still ongoing.
Mm-hmm. But
Indeed.
did he lose?
But did he lose?
But
Yeah.
really, did he
He-
actually lose?
And in my opinion, that was really a brilliant strategy in part of the Sussex's legal team. I'm not a legal expert by no means, but I think that, looking things around and speak with people that knows a little bit more than I do, and having that kind of understanding, and that's very clear to me, that was the good way to go. Because I know, and I think most of us knew, there was a possibility that he was not going to win that, because it would have been very difficult, for the court to allow that to happen for many reasons. It would have been a problem for the royals. It would have been a problem for even the politicians. And so, but at the same token, what that does is it opened the door now for Harry to get his protection from the English people, the taxpayers people, or from his dad. Maybe he should pay for it. Because at the end of the day, he is the son of a king. And he deserves and need to be protected like everybody else. And from what I understand, if I'm right, I don't know, like the Queen Consort turned to Queen Children's. If they are getting protection, if Harry's uncle getting protection, now the royals will have to answer, why can Harry be protected? And I think, as you can see today, maybe we should play this clip why he need to be protected, and everybody get that, because when you looked at this man over the week that make the comment that, you know what, why should the British people pay for Harry security? I know some of the Sussex squad didn't quite understand and thought that, you know, he was being, you know, malicious, and he was being, you know, sort of disingenuous by putting something out there. But the reason why he put that, because they all of them clearly understand that is the next move. And that is a move that they're not going to be able to get away from by not protecting the son of the king and his family, that who is in danger. And that also serves his country, because now if you don't want him to be protected, then you have to explain why Andrew is getting protection. You will have to answer why is that, you know, the politician after leaving office are getting protection. There's so many questions you will have to answer. Because again, let me repeat again, this is the son of the king. So if you're going to protect, if I'm right, if it's what been reported is right, the children of the so-called queen, consort queen, why not Harry and his family? And I thought it was a brilliant thing, because now you can go back and say that, you know, why don't he pay it for himself? You know, as they were discussing in one of the shows over the week. I think we should let people see how disingenuous these people can be. And when they are playing those reports, it's like, on one hand, they are saying, yes, why, you know, he needs the security, but at the same token, and say, well, you know, he should pay for it. But that's exactly what he's trying to do. Let's listen to this.
Yesterday, Prince Harry sought approval from the High Court for a second legal challenge against the Home Office over his security arrangements when he's in the UK. Duke of Sussex wants to be able to pay for protective security privately when he and his family are in the UK. Lawyers for the Home Office argued that it was not appropriate for wealthy people to be able to buy specialist armed police protective security, and warns it sets a dangerous precedent for other wealthy individuals.
Key word is armed, I think, isn't it? I'm not sure that those with enough money who feel like they need the protection, and he probably does, can buy in random freelancers who
Guns for hire.
with a gun. I mean, I just don't. In Britain, I'm not sure that should be allowed.
Not
really.
what we want here, do we? We don't want the richest people in society to have their own little armies and armed vigilante groups, even if they do need excellent protection. I mean, obviously, it's a terrible idea.
He has clearly, and obviously everybody knows, if you step back,
yeah.
But he's still of royal blood. There is still a risk there, isn't he? Entitled to some sort of protection?
I think some form of protection is going to be needed for him. Whether that comes out of his pocket or the state's pocket, it's a very, very difficult one, because he has sort of left the royal family, hasn't he, really? He's left as a working royal.
But, you know, he's an unbelievably wealthy man by anybody's standards at all. By any standards on this earth, he is one of the top, you know, infinite percentage of a percentage point of people in terms of affluence. Obviously, he's quite right to consider safety for himself and security for his family. That makes a lot of sense. He's one of the most prominently recognisable people on earth. Pay for it yourself and don't recruit from the British police force. That's not right.
So here we go. You see, like, it all depends on who's listening, at what time you're listening. Because if you hear this woman talking about, well, he's a very rich man and is able to, you know, he should be able to pay, why should the British pay for it? Then you're probably like, yeah, you know, you're rich, what can you pay? But the reality, that's exactly what he was trying to do. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Honestly, I'm completely flabbergasted that this is even happening in the first place, because to me, the decision to remove it, I can't fathom it. I can't understand it at all, because remove it, the idea that somehow he's stepping back from a capacity in terms of officially representing the crown in public engagements, somehow that changing his nature as, to your point, the son of the king, doesn't make any sense. And if you're going to remove his security, if that suddenly somehow disqualifies him from being who he is, then it brings, into my mind anyway, the question of, okay, well, if that's the case, then how do you guys defend your own legitimacy, your own credibility as these so-called royals that deserve these positions and to get any taxpayer money at all?
Absolutely. But in my opinion, the reason why I think they did that, it was a tactic, it was a scared move. Not thinking what was to come for the Sussexes, how brilliant their strategies was going to be, and how great they were going to have it, and how successful they was. So by removing their securities, by make them feel unsafe, then they will probably would have no choice to just well back in. They didn't know what Harry was cooking. They didn't know that, you know what, they were going to make it, whether or not they was going to be able to make it. And in my opinion, I think that's what was behind it. It was a scare tactic to make sure that, you know what, they could scare them, especially when you have a young kid at the time. Archie was barely, I think, 6 or 8 months old. I don't know.
Sure. So first of all, I completely agree with you. I definitely think that it was a scare tactic by them at the very beginning in order to make them kind of, go back into the royal fold. But anyway, now that's done. The next thing is actually very, very nice. Apparently Twitter was out, and I know that Barron had actually tweeted this as well, but there is some very sweet speaking Russian women who are clearly devoted fans of Meghan and Harry, and they decided to actually share in photos their support of the Sussexes after the paparazzi ridiculousness that happened last week, and then all of the bashing and the hate against Harry and Meghan. So I just thought it was really, really nice. They went on Twitter and they had a whole bunch of Russian girls holding up signs, and it was very sweet. So we'll show you a quick picture of that just because it's really sweet. And then
I can tell you, and that is what's going to be really a problem for the Royals, because the Sussex squads are growing. They are going everywhere. The support for Meghan and Harry, it's growing everywhere around the world. And it's not just now. We have Russia, we have Italia, we have Spain, it's everywhere in Europe. People are saying, wait a minute, what is going on here? And want to put their support behind Meghan and Harry. So we are growing. Whether you are a squatty or you are just a supporter of Harry and Meghan, but the coalition, it's growing rapidly. And it's fair to say the news media who have been listening, we know they have been listening to us, but I believe at the moment they are listening in a very different way. I think they are getting cues from us, the Sussex squad, and I think they are starting to recognize that, the power that Sussex squad have and the type of people that is in the Sussex squad. And I think that, the game is changing. And we are changing the game. And it's all for the good. And we're doing it in style, with love.
Yep, that's great. And then the next piece of news is actually fantastic. You'll remember that each week I've been bringing back to you what's been going on with KaBoom.
Yeah.
And then what actually has been happening, because there was Uvalde, but basically had this terrible school shooting, and then the Sussex squad actually came in because there was actually a need for kids, a safe place for kids to play around disadvantaged communities in that area. And so there was kind of a GoFundMe on KaBoom in order to kind of help pay for one of these playgrounds. And the original goal was $20,000. And then now, as it currently stands, due to entirely the support of the Sussex squad, it is now over $86,000.
Wow. And I believe
it's incredible.
It's probably going to get higher, because I believe that this goes on all the way to June 4th for Lily's birthday. That's coming up very, very, very soon.
Yep,
wow,
yep.
That is wonderful. I believe there's a nice, beautiful message. Yeah, I think we should listen to it. I think it was wonderful.
The CEO of KaBoom actually came out with a really nice message, so we'll play that now.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ratliff. I'm the CEO of KaBoom. We are a national nonprofit that is on a mission to end place-based inequity for good. And I just wanted to send out a very heartfelt thanks to the Sussex squad. You have captured our hearts and blown us away by how your community has mobilized around the world for our kids. You have raised collectively over $80,000 this month, and we just couldn't be more grateful for you and all that you do just to put your hearts into action and to support organizations like us who are living and breathing change for our kids and our future generation. Thank you so much for being part of our mission.
Yeah, so what else?
Yep.
It's a
And
lot
then
of news.
It is a lot of news this week. And then finally, unfortunately, a sadder tone is that Tina Turner passed on Wednesday. So she was indeed the queen of just generally. She was just amazing. Broke so many barriers. She passed on Wednesday night at 83 years old. There was a statement by her publicist, Bernard Doherty, and what he actually said is that Tina Turner, the queen of rock and roll, has died peacefully today at the age of 83 after a long illness in her home in Zurich. With her, the world loses a music legend and a role model.
Yes, she was indeed. I'm only sad for one thing. It's just this idea that, this person is no longer there, no more. But I celebrate her life. I celebrate who she was, not just as a woman, as an icon, as someone that, I will say many of us look for strength on who she was. And I have many wonderful, incredible stories about that woman. Not going to share this at the moment, but I celebrate her. And I think her legends, her influence will live on many of us for a very, very long time, and especially Proud Mary, who, whenever that come on, who doesn't dance Proud Mary? It's wonderful. I think we should pay tribute to this wonderful legend. May she rest in power. Love you, Tina, forever. Love you, Auntie Tina.
You're obviously a role model for me, but you are a role model for the world. Because I remember when I was interviewing in 2008, you and Cher in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And we started talking about aging. And you were so profoundly eloquent.
How do you feel, though, about getting older?
I have to say that I welcome it with open arms because my senior life is so much better than when I was young. I am the wisdom, the way I think, my attitude towards things. There is a change when you're still healthy and you still look good.
Yeah.
So your whole outlook changes on everything, and you're really happy. You don't mind being 68. The number doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing.
You have no regretting of it?
Not of death, of any of that.
No.
All of that is, I've done it.
You say loudly and proudly
Yes.
that you're 73?
Yes. Yes. But I am at a stage where, Oprah, you can get emotional when you start to talk about that, to be able to get to this stage and say, even when it's time to leave and go to another planet,
Yeah.
excited about that because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I want to know what is it about? Nobody can tell you.
Yeah.
Because nobody has come back to. So I'm not excited about to die, but I don't regret it when it's time for me. I've done what I came here to do.
Yeah.
Now it's pleasure. I've got great friends. I have a great man in my life. Now I have a great husband, and I'm happy.
Wow. It's those legs. She was known for her legs, and she have in fact had commercials. I believe was for hands, and those incredible legs. It just wow. And the fact is that this is the woman that I inspire to be hopefully at 63 when I reach that, if God willing and God bless me, to be able to be with it like that and be able to perform like a full 2 hours, sort of show, like 2 hours. And I believe she was 63. Can you believe this? When she, like, doing her rock and roll concert, which was absolutely incredible. Wow, what a legend. So, should we move to comment? Are we done with the report?
Yep, we are all finished. So let's go to comments.
Lovely.
Well, I will say we have to say a big thank you again to all of our members. You all mean so much to us, and we still have a hard time believing it. But it really is. It is so appreciated, and a special thank you to our newest members, Black Pearl and Marvel Walker. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Black Pearl. Wow.
And in terms of comments across the board, we had excellent comments that I know all of us, we were jumping up and down as we got them and read them last week. And we're like, we need to read that one. We need to read that one. That one's. But unfortunately, we can't read them all. But we do have.
Hold on. I mean, because you were just now talking about our supporters, and then you just jump into something. I didn't get a chance to actually say thank you. Thank you, guys. I mean, I was waiting for you. But thank you so much for your support. It means so much to us. We really enjoy what we're doing now, and given that, we unable to get any support from, please help me here.
Monetization.
Exactly, because music is a huge part of the show. It's a part of the story, and it tells the story in a way that sometimes I can't even articulate. So, and because of that, we're unable to have
monetization.
Oh my God, I can barely speak. But anyway, you guys understand what I'm saying. So thank you so much for the support. Hopefully we'll be able to do some really wonderful thing moving forward. So go ahead.
Exactly. That is, I couldn't have said it better. And like I was saying before, we all of us, when we were seeing the comments come in after last week's service, we were just enjoying them so much because they're truly wonderful, and they really highlight how great a community this is. And unfortunately, don't have the time to read all of them, but I do have a few, actually 4 today, that are worth the extra attention to revisit and highlight. And actually, this first one's a good segue, will be a good segue to one of our words today. It's from Travel Chamo, who said, "Thank you, Lady Sussex, George, and Charles. Today's service brought me calm. To God be the glory in his wisdom and almighty power. He is revealing to us the force we are dealing with. Let there be no illusions." I love the following quote from Maya Angelou. "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. That, in fact, it may be necessary to encounter defeat. So we can know who the hell we are, what we can overcome, what makes us stumble and fall, and somehow miraculously rise and go on. I know that a diamond is the result of extreme pressure."
Wow, beautiful. Well said.
It is. Our second comment is from Lavertha August, who was responding to the chase specifically, and she wrote, "Doria's head down indicated to me that she was praying. Megan's look indicated to me that she was going to hold her head high to show that she was going to be bigger than what was trying to be created for her, and show she was not going to show defeat, just as we have seen her do many times before while in negative situations in the UK. And Harry, with his camera, was showing courage to confront their attackers in like manner in spirit in spite of fear. They were all, in my opinion, demonstrating Mark Twain's words, which were, courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not the absence of fear."
Wow.
I saw courage under fire in that picture in the cab.
Interesting.
And Maddie B. Hi, Maddie B. Thank you so much for this comment also. She wrote to us, "Yes, name it and claim it. To God be the glory. Such a beautiful service. A huge thank you to all 3 of you, dear children of God. As the tabloid media continues to weaponize propaganda against the Sussexes and their supporters, we must combat misinformation with truth. When a king, fears the tabloids to the point where he gives away his power and allows them to manipulate the minds of a nation, it shows who really has the power. Feckless Charles is a puppet for the devil. Did not Satan tempt Jesus with all the kingdoms of the world if he would turn his back on his heavenly Father and follow him, the devil? Jesus basically replied, "Eat my dust, bye Felicia." Misinformation is a strategy that works. It's designed to incite a response, outrage, hate, fear, and bring about death, whether it be the death of the body, mind, or spirit. It is the favorite tool of the devil, his trademark, the lie. We must combat lies with truth. God tells us that our sword is the word of God. I have a sword. I named it truth. I use it to slay them with the word of God. Amen.
Wow, wonderful. I mean, I just love the comments because, the thing is about this show here, you guys are the Sussex Words I'm talking about, or the fourth member of this podcast. It's just it's the other co-hosts, right? And they help us. When you listen to their comments, what they bring, and it's just wonderful. It just make it much more interesting and better.
Honestly, with some of the comments we get, like the
that
ones
could have
today,
been just
it's
the
like,
show.
yeah, we don't even need to do anything else. We're just
absolutely. Well, they are the co-hosts as well too. So,
and
yeah.
And the last one that I'll read is another long one, but it's wonderful, and it's from Ruth R.D. again. Actually, it's 2 weeks in a row, I think. She wrote, Act 1 closes with the build-up to the coronation. The churlish scene in the golden carriage, the late arrival of the tiara of fake flowers, the triumphant smiles of the third person in the king's first marriage, waving from Buckingham's balcony. But the dominant public topic is the soldier prince who wore a morning suit instead of pretend garb of a military statesman. Preamble to Act 2. The youngest son of the king experiences a situation similar to that which his mother died under. This is important because, after the many twists and turns of the long 40 years first act, the young son is estranged from his father. This estrangement is due to many factors. Uppermost is the role of the tabloid media and the mistress queen. The situation involves cars, photographers, flashing cameras, relentless chase, police. Read the autobiography Spare to get a feel for what the king's youngest son must have been feeling. The pressure of the situation must have been triggering to the prince, but it certainly triggered many emotions in those who support his stance. Was this a signal to American policing on its ability to protect the prince? Has the prince struck fear in the perpetrators because of his court suits? Where are the principal players from Act 1? Quiet. Are they trying to wash blood, figuratively, off their hands from 30 years ago? Eyes are opened. Fear for the Spare is real, but fear of the Spare is also evident, and his destruction now seems to be the goal. Targeting Meghan exposed societal weaknesses in the system, and thinking they could get rid of her without affecting the Spare has now created unforeseen complications. Is this the end of the con? Service is universal.
Wow, absolutely. That's deep. That's deep. It's everything
There's a
that
lot
we.
in that.
There's a lot in there, and hopefully we probably will have to come back to it again. But I believe there is one last one. We usually will do 3, but there's one particularly comment that I feel, called to actually say something about it. Would you mind read it for me?
Yes, I can read. It's one final comment. It reads, for starters, wish they'd been wearing their seatbelts. On the other hand, I think we do somewhat a disservice by constantly invoking Harry's mental health issues. Most of us have mental challenges of some extent, but Harry is smart and brave, not dysfunctional. I understand what's being said, but I just believe such comments should be used guardedly, or it would be used against him by his foes.
Well, I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and I know where that's coming from. It's coming from a place of love and care. But this is what I will say. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychiatrist by no means, but I'm also someone that will have my share difficulty, with mental health. And it's probably one of the things that I come to be proud of my generation, the fact that, we are able to have a conversation and talk about our mental health. And I think in the reason why that is important, because from what I understand, speaking with my aunt, uncle, and older folks that I get a chance to talk to, even people a little bit older than me, it's still a taboo. It's still not something people really comfortable talk about because they feel like, they will be put in a box of not being well somehow, they just, I guess, so many word crazy or something like that. They're not going to be able to do their job. They're not going to, and we don't see it that way. At least my generation, or I don't see it that way. I think, mental health, until we able to have conversation, like we said, we going to a doctor because we have a headache, and it's okay. It's not a big deal. The fact that what she's saying, right? That they will use it again. Well, that's the point. That's the reason why we're talking. We want to take the power. And I think Harry himself have done an incredible job talking about mental health issues. And he talks about his own mental health all the time. He even a part of sort of a big organization that deal with mental health, which means he's going to continue at all time talk about it. It's not a secret, and it should not be a secret. And the thing is, I think the work that Harry is doing and many other people that don't mind to talk about their mental health issues is incredible. And in fact, I've seen it, with a lot of musicians, a lot of actors and actresses that who do talk about mental health issues. Because I remember my trip to Hollywood. At some point when I get there, I was confronted with very unexpected, huge mental issues drama. Now, this is stars, this is people that, sort of you see on the big screen that just kind of like, wow, brilliant, and you look up to, and you're like, what do you mean you have mental health issues? Like, I didn't understand, too young to actually really understand what are you talking about? Like, I didn't get it. Do you understand what I mean? And so, and to see that, how afraid many of these people were, to now how people are able to talk about it. And the fact that just recently, Harry and Meghan both went to a youth center, I believe, to have that conversation. They want to have the conversation with people my generation. We want to have that conversation because I think it's a very important. That is the only way we're going to remove the power. Because if we don't, it's going to go back into the box, and we all going to be judged because somehow that we're not feeling well. If the mind is not well, then how you able to support your body? I understand that everybody experience mental health challenges very different. Your problem is not my problem. My problem is not your problem. We all have, these challenges that cause us at times not feeling well and overwhelmed. And so for me, it's something that I want to advocate. And this is what I'm so proud to be a supporter of Prince Harry, because he's not afraid to talk about these challenges. And that doesn't make him a weak. And we cannot, what these people are going to do, this is what they're going to do. I'm not going to get my cue from what these people are saying. They're always going to say what they have to say. And the point is, we have other people that are listening to us that say, well, if she can do it, if she can talk about, or if he can talk about it, then maybe I can talk about it. And that is the point. So, well, I understand where you're coming from, and I love your comment. Please keep it coming, I enjoy that. I enjoy that kind of conversation, but I'm not going to stop, sort of talk about mental health issue, because I think it's a huge part in especially our culture, that we're really afraid and scared. Spite of all the helps, we're still losing people due to mental health challenges. And until this is no longer a thing, that we're able to go for help, just like we go for checkup and deal with whatever situation that we may be dealing with. Until that happens, then I will not stop. And I know Harry would not stop. And I think he will want us to highlight that there's nothing to be fear of. Because many of these people that were making these kind of foul comments are themselves have mental issues that maybe perhaps they should deal with. So that's all I would say. But thank you for your comment. Love you. And please keep them coming. We're not fighting, by no means. I enjoy that debate, and we can agree to disagree. It's
Yes, the
fine.
foul comments
We
you
are
were referring
family.
to as someone else, not this comment, just to be clear.
Pardon?
Because you just said those foul comments, you were talking about other comments, not this one.
Oh, no. I'm talking about the people that who is
The haters.
the haters. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think you summed it up perfectly. I would just echo everything you said. I think it's honestly one of the reasons why I am so much a supporter as I am of Harry and Meghan, is because of how impactful their work is in using their role in their place on the world stage to actually normalize talking about mental health, because it is one of the things that can do the greatest good for the most number of people, just to be able to make that more accessible and less taboo.
Yeah, because there's place around the world people experience mental health issues that they don't know that's what it is. They don't even have a name for it. And so now that we're able to reach people, many places, many corners of the world, and if they can find someone, maybe not me, that they can identify, can say, oh, a prince, a princess, oh, maybe I'm not strange, maybe I'm not horrible, maybe I'm not, sort of, and I've seen things. I may be young, but I get a great opportunity to travel the world and be a part of certain organizations that do wonderful things. And so I've seen what is going out there, and I can tell you that, mental health, many times, it's a huge part of a lot of the issues that many of these people that have encountered the problem. And that sometimes cause you, the person that was there, to experience, because through that pain, the trauma that you're watching and seeing, cause your mental health, to be questioned. And so, no, I am not going to stop talking about it. So, should we get the service started?
I think we put so much of the service before even starting the service, yes. But before we go, as a reminder to everyone, and to ourselves especially, we are not experts. We don't know everything, and we're certainly not trying to convince anyone that we are, or to convince anyone to change their beliefs. But we do believe ourselves that stopping and pausing and thinking critically about what's being said, the narrative that's being told, the words that's being used, the ones that are not being used, all of those things, to really think about them makes a difference, and is a crucial step in getting to a place of understanding that from which we can make the world a better place. And so that's why we're here.
Amen. Let's get the service started.
Don't be afraid. We are a society built on love, built on tolerance, built on love for each other, acceptance. Give them love, give them love. Don't matter what you look like, don't matter what you believe, but just believe in love. I'm talking to Philly, I'm talking to London, I'm talking to DC, Paris, Berlin. And we can always be together, we can always give love. And we want you in, as long as you bring love.
So, Sussex Squad Nation, Charles and George, we are going to continue looking at what is currently happening through the eyes of what they often tell us that the royals are doing, and who the royals are is theater. Everything is happening is theater, and we try to have an understanding what does that mean. So we're back at it, but in a very different angle. So I have chosen 3 words for you guys this week. The first one is Coliseum, illusion, prestige. So Charles, what is the definition and what is a Coliseum?
Sure. So the Coliseum was actually first used as a word in 1660. It's actually from the medieval Latin of Coliseum, from the same spelling. And that actually was derived from the Middle Ages for what was the great outdoor arena in ancient Rome, which everyone's familiar with. So the first definition of that is actually exactly that. It is actually the amphitheater built in Rome in the 1st century AD. It is literally, the structure defined the word. And then from that, actually, they changed the spelling just slightly. And what that is basically a large sports stadium or building designed to be like a Coliseum, the Roman Coliseum, for public entertainment. So it literally just coined the phrase, quite literally. So as want to do that lately is that to give some context, what I thought would be nice actually is a bit of some background on actually the amphitheater in Rome. It's classically called the Flavian Amphitheater. And the giant amphitheater built in Rome under the Flavian emperors, the construction of the Colosseum was begun somewhere between 70 and 72 BC during the reign of Vespasian, and is located just east of the Palatine Hill on the grounds of what was Nero's Golden House. So there was actually an artificial lake that Nero made, and it was the centerpiece of the palace, and it was actually drained. And the Colosseum was actually sited there, and the decision was actually very symbolic. If you're not familiar with ancient Roman history, Nero was not a great guy, was not a great emperor, and was assassinated for being just basically terrible at everything. And as such, basically what he came from is that Nero was very much for himself. He basically raided all of Rome's treasury. He built an entire city practically just devoted to him. And part of this was actually a lake that he constructed and almost bled Rome dry for their treasury because he was just so, he was just so greedy just in terms of what he wanted for himself. So in order to do that, what actually they churned is that the next emperor after him actually decided to build the Colosseum, drain the lake, and actually the Colosseum was for the people.
Interesting.
So it was just the way symbolically about how they actually turned what was the Roman Narrows and actually turned it back into a public amphitheater for tens of thousands of Romans. So there was just a lot of symbology there, which is actually very interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Because right now, one can say that, they are draining the British people out of their resources, out of everything, in my opinion. Left people starving and heatless, well, we have all these expenses that we constantly hearing all the time, but yet people cannot feed themselves. Nurses who are supposed to be treating us and taking care of us unable to do that because they cannot feed their own family for so many of them. And it's almost in some weird way history repeating itself in some, I don't know what to say. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, there's a famous saying that says that history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. And I think this is a pretty good example of that.
Absolutely.
Sure. And then just finally, just in terms of just the last little bit of history here, the structure was officially dedicated in 80 BC by Titus in a ceremony that actually included 100 days of games. So, and the reason why this building was just so special is that unlike earlier amphitheaters, which was basically just dug out of convenient hillsides that offered that extra support, the Colosseum is the first freestanding structure of stone and concrete that was actually made for human entertainment.
Wow. Many people don't know that there is one very almost, if not a replica of it in France as well too. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, that is basically the background of the Coliseum.
Okay, go ahead.
George. I think you articulated and probably even better than this guy. One of the people that I had been looking into in terms of just tying it back to what's going on right now and what you were just describing of what's happening in society and the echoes of history. And the title of one of the articles was "The Coliseum, a Political Tool," and the author goes into everything that Charles just went through about the placement of it, the fact that it was giving the land back to the people, and really what it served as, what it meant to do. And the thing that I think explains that best is actually from another article. It's titled "The Ideology of the Arena" by Eric Gunderson from the Classical Antiquity Journal. And he writes quite at length about it, but just to take a few of the points out, he writes that there's few discussions of this topic of the Roman arena that occur that fail to include this famous tag from Juvenal's 10th satire. And Juvenal is a famous satirist, and he's actually an important read for everyone trying to really look at what's happening in Western civilization today. But anyway, the 10th satire goes paraphrased as follows. But what of the Roman mob? They shed their sense of responsibility long ago when they lost their votes and their bribes. The mob that used to grant power, high office, the legions, everything, curtails its desires and reveals its anxiety for two things only: bread and circuses.
Wow.
And the thing is, that's exactly what the amphitheater, it's exactly what the Coliseum was meant to do. That it was its role as a political tool was to be able to control the masses through that provision of bread and circuses, that entertainment, that distraction from what actually matters. And I think that's he elaborates quite well in this journal. There's two ideas that stood out at me, is that it is a crucial structure physically, but also concept in how the political elite moralize and maintain social roles and the actual hierarchy that exists within society. It is a fundamental tool to being able to preserve that status quo. And the second idea is that the games themselves, I think, is an interesting thing to think about. They were a product of a fallen Rome. Those games, the Coliseum itself, effectively supplanted the more noble pursuits of the Republic that came before it, which I think is an interesting idea, especially maybe a particularly concerning one when we look at comparisons to what we see today.
What was the specific games? What were the games that were being played there?
That is the right question to ask, and it also is going to bring up one other thing that honestly shocked and hurt me reading it. I know I shared it with you all last week, but at the end of the day, what it was blood. It was bloodlust. It was taking slaves themselves and having them kill each other for the entertainment of the masses. And it speaks to some of the worst parts of human nature in and of itself, but it also is important to not lose sight of that. To your point in raising the question of what really, at the end of the day, was it, the games that took place, because that dark part of human nature still's there. It can be and is frequently tapped into, or tried to be tapped into, by many political leaders. And it made me think of actually one of the tweets that I saw. Excuse me. One of the tweets that we saw last week following the chase. And it's this picture of Diana, and the person wrote, Harry and Meghan alleging a near catastrophic paparazzi car chase in New York City, which I don't believe is even possible in the city. But then the really horrifying part that is scary to think about as it relates to what it speaks volumes about for us as a society today, is that she ends it by saying, "But did you die?" What's the morbid curiosity, almost, the fact that the actual car crash, or the fact that someone would be dying, that's what makes it legitimate or important or newsworthy. That it's not believed unless there was someone actually got hurt. It just kind of goes back to that idea of what we care about, what makes people move, is the actual pain and suffering and violence.
But is it fair to say, or even ask the question, this is something that's still with us, that's still the Coliseum entertainment stays with us throughout different generations. During slavery, I think one will say it was very similar, right? That, you will have, probably where the word picnic come from. What used to happen? People will look at, certain executions, if that's the proper word that I'm able to say on YouTube, as an entertainment. Right? the idea that you put dogs on people, you put sort of, in the 60s and everything that was going on, to people of color. And you can the same thing in Germany. There is a lot that have happened to different generation. India, all these different places, and yet people say nothing or accepting it almost as an entitlement. Is it because that mentality is still with us? Because right now, the idea is that you can have a prince that is serve his country as wonderful and as amazing that the amazing work that he has done and continue doing, and people are okay for him in some ways, in my opinion, to get hurt and not calling out. I don't care how you may feel about him, his ethic, or whatever it is that you may feel about Prince Harry. The idea that you will not want the person that will pretty much stand for freedom, the freedom that you enjoy, and you are okay to ask the question, why should we pay for your security? But what is, we ask you, why should we protect you? We go in the battlefield knowing that everything that our troops, the sacrifices that they made for freedom, I don't think they have the question, or they ever ask the question, why should we go and protect our country and protect you? So, is it something that's in us, that still stay with us, and how many of us are okay for people to be like, unless there's a kill or there is sort of an end, we're not satisfied. It's almost like we are looking for what you call, very often people say, red meat. Even the phrase of red meat, it's like, we want red meat. We want the killing. So is that what's with us, that mentality from the Coliseum ages?
Well, I think a large part of it would also be the way in which it dehumanizes people and desensitizes people. Because the reason why they use slaves, obviously, is because they're disposable, but also because no one has any kind of attachment to it. And so, and I think the same thing can be said for what was happening in, through all the civil rights, no matter kind of almost which class or country you go to, it's the same thing, is that they have to eliminate your humanity in order to do the things that they do. And which is why it can become this spectacle, is because, okay, well, look, it's not that it could ever happen to you. It's happening to the others. And so I think that's one of the worst hallmarks of the whole thing, is because they don't even deny you, the right to live in the first place. They deny your entire existence of what you're about. And to your point, and that in and of itself kind of lifts up the audience, and which I think is, why they think it's entertainment, is because, okay, well, look, we're not them. We're others. We're outside of that. We're better than them. And this is, and that's what has been played throughout the centuries, is this idea about how you can basically relegate others to a lower degree in order to boost yourself, in order to feel better about yourself. And I think that happens a lot through what these things happen.
When you think of, just a minute, George, when you think of what they're doing to the Duchess, sort of Meghan, and you see day in, day out, they literally crucified this woman. They constantly at her, try to take something away from her, try to push her to the end. But that is presenting to us as a form of so-called entitlement, right? That's what these people that's supposedly what tabloid is supposed to be. This weird, dark entertainment world that doesn't really care who is affecting. The fact is, this woman is a mother, that Harry is a father, that no matter what, this woman, every day she have to wake up and figure out, what did she do today? What did the tabloid tell her today? And how they push people, how they incite people Do you understand what I mean? It's kind of like, is that mentality, that sick, mentality that I don't really quite understand, which is why I wanted to look at the word Coliseum. Where is that mentality
Well, I
come
think
from?
the both of you are exactly right and on point with it. And I think the question is the right one. I think I love the choice of the word and why you brought this, because I think your last questions highlight exactly the point, is that it is part of it is just that there is parts of human nature that can be tapped into for malicious ends, and we're at the end of the day, we're humans, we're not perfect, that we can every day, every moment, have a choice to be either good or to do evil, and you can lean. There's a whole spectrum of how you actually go about doing that, and there's this reality that we can be, as human beings, won over by the red meat that you're just mentioning, what that death, the violence, that there is a certain attraction to it as human, as a part of human nature. And I think this actually brings up the importance of the Coliseum specifically, the one that built in Rome, built to house 50,000 people, the biggest of its time, to be able to do that, because what that really was is the fact that it was a political tool, is to get that many people to be in the same moment, partaking in that same ritual of watching that, to be able to use that as a sort of balm to their unease or discontentment politically, socially, to be able to maintain control. That urge, or that part of human nature, hasn't gone away since the time of Rome. And what has happened is that there's no longer a need for a physical structure. Modern media eliminates the need to get people physically in the same space for them to be experiencing the same thing, the same ritual, that same attack on humanity. Now, with the way that modern technology and media works, the entire world, this is what we said in that show, the entire world's a stage. The entire world is the Coliseum. It's connected through modern media, and it is something to watch out for, of those who are trying to turn the world into that modern Coliseum through those channels. Because I think the author put it perfectly, that urge, that focus on that particular ritual and what that is, it is something that supplants more noble pursuits.
That is incredible. I really would love to see what you, Sussex Squad, think about this word Coliseum, and how should we view, sort of, it just, I feel like Harry and Meghan are becoming the gladiator. It's like, I remember, one of the scene from Gladiator where, Russell Crowe say, "Are you not entertained?" Something like that. I guess.
You got it. Yes. Good Russell Crowe impression.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, even in that instinct that he asked that question, it's because, in a way, he felt like it was wrong, but he had to fight for his life, right? Is that mentality where we constantly, all of us, feel that, we're constantly fighting for our life. The fact that Harry has to fight just to have security, just to have, like, some respect. And you looked at, Meghan, who's done absolutely nothing. The woman, in so many ways, is perfect. He's a sort of model to that institution. But yet is being put in a place almost like she have to defend herself. She needs to be 50% of herself. She needs to constantly, being knocked on. And so is that fight. And hopefully, if she's strong enough, she'll survive it. Because many people don't survive it.
Honestly, that is a perfect example, because the parallels with that movie, with this story that we're discussing right now, extends even to what you were saying at the beginning of the service. That in its use as a political tool, frequently the slaves were given, here's your script, you're going to die in this particular way to recreate this historical battle, which makes us look good. That was what they did. And as you said before, when they took away their security in the first place, they had it in their mind that this was the script that they were going to follow. Oh, they're going to get scared and they're going to come back.
That's right.
And they didn't expect that Harry and Meghan were going to do exactly what Russell Crowe did in the movie, which was, oh, you think the battle ends this way? No, it doesn't end this way.
It doesn't
I'm going
end
to change it. I'm not going to recreate history the way you think it ought to be created. And what's interesting is what it forces them to do, the people who are trying to use it as a political tool, when the outcome isn't what they had planned for it to be, as you saw with the emperor, so I need to come and befriend this gladiator and raise him up and make him better so that I can keep power. It's going to force Harry and Meghan's success in not needing their security is going to force them to do that same thing, just exactly as you were saying.
I didn't attend to even go, I wasn't even thinking about the movie. It's just something that just happened right now. Maybe perhaps God put it in my head. But as you guys are talking, and I just mentioned Gladiator, the movie, when you looked at the story, it could be very easy to look at the role Russell Crowe played versus the king. He killed his father, right, just to be king, and the fact that he felt like he's never been loved, right, by the dad. Somehow Russell Crowe, was the one that who was loved, and so when you think of, he didn't understand why people love him, why people,
the Emperor Claudius didn't understand why people loved
exactly Russell Crowe. I think, what was his name in the movie?
The Emperor's name?
Russell Crowe.
Or Maximus.
Maximus. The fact that, people was chanting and so you can see how people love, if you were to put Harry and Harry's brother, people, I think it's fair to say, or is it fair for me to say, there is a lack of understanding. Why is he being praised like that? Why people love him? Why people are cheering him on and want him to win? Versus that, I'm the firstborn, or I'm the king. I'm supposed to have that attention and I'm not getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you think about what he was willing in the movie to do, and perhaps what he has done. So if you looked at what's happening to Harry and Meghan right now, you can see the parallel of it. You can see the parallel of it. The jealousy, the not understanding. The fact is that somehow I deserve to have everything that you have. And I don't understand why people love you. I don't understand why you fight that fight so well. Why you are the gladiator that you are, you and your wife. In some ways, no matter how much you trash them, they are perfect and they are good at it. And they are everything they wish they can be, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So should we move on to our second word? Our second word is illusion. So, Charles, how should we look at the word illusion?
Sure. So in the 14th century was its first usage. It's derived from the Middle English and from Anglo-French, and then from there actually into the late Latin in illusio. And actually I find the derivation of it actually really interesting. So from Latin, the root of it actually is an action of mocking, or in order to play or to mock at, to be ludicrous. Is actually where the meaning comes from. So the first definition actually is a misleading image presented to the vision. So an optical illusion would be one. The second is something that deceives or misleads intellectually. Mm-hmm. And then a subset of that actually is a perception of something objectively existing in such a way as to cause misinterpretation of its actual nature. Or you can think of it as a hallucination.
Wow.
The third is actually a pattern capable of reversible perspective. The next is a state or fact of being intellectually deceived or misled.
Wow. So Sexuad Nation, are you guys hearing this?
Indeed.
That is incredible.
So the next is actually an instance of such deception, or the act of deceiving. And then finally, a fine, plain, transparent bobbinet or a tulle used to make silk and used for veils. I had no idea about that. That was the first time I've ever heard such a thing existing. But apparently an illusion is actually a piece of silk that's used for veils and trimming in dresses.
Interesting.
So, there you know.
What about you? Go ahead. You have more?
I do. So, so again, when you start thinking about in terms of, okay, well, what kind of illusions are we talking about? And then is there any historical precedent for something such as that people have used in the past? So I went around a whole bunch just in terms of trying to look up, okay, well, what instances have we seen that the royals have used illusion to great effect? And then there was a lot of other things that kind of go hem and haw, but I found one that I thought was interesting just because it's a piece of history that I wasn't aware of, that was used to great effect militarily. So Henry II, actually, during the War of the Roses, actually, there was a regal stronghold called Warwick Castle, and it's super famous. There's so many historical events surrounding this castle. But during the Norman conquest and among the sieges and battles that actually took place on its grounds, there was a great deal of actual cunning and trickery that was actually used on Henry II's part. So one of the really kind of crazy moments in history is actually when they were invading this fort. The invaders actually tricked the wife of the count who was actually holding up the castle, which his name is Roger de Mont, who is the second Earl of Warwick, into believing that her husband has died.
Mm-hmm.
So in doing so, she actually opened up the gates and handed them the castle. But in doing that, she actually didn't know that he was, in fact, very much alive. But when he actually heard of his wife's action, he literally collapsed and died of shock.
Wow.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's your good instance of illusion.
Illusion's a really interesting word, and there's a lot more meat to it than I had thought before spending this time looking it up. So it's one that was definitely enjoyed. And there's the first journal is actually the Revista Hispanoamérica de Filosofía. It's the author is Morris Lazarowitz, and he wrote the article titled "Philosophy and Illusion." And he actually started with these two quotes that I'm also going to read because I think they are just good summations of, again, why we're here and what we're doing. The first is, concealed lighting can make things look very different from what they are. Why not pull the curtains and open the windows? The light will be better, the air will be fresher, and we shall be freer. That was John Wisdom, The Structure of Metaphysics. And the second is, once I had been able to tear aside an illusion that had previously dimmed my vision, once I had seen through something, the insight thus gained was never lost. That was Ernest Jones from Free Associations. So this author, I think he just writes brilliantly. So I'm just going to read the first bit of what he shared about philosophy and illusion. He wrote that Freud explained an illusion as a belief which has at its origin primarily in a wish and maintains its hold on the mind through the strength of the wish rather than by the virtue of the evidence. So it's more than anything, it's the wish. When a wish is very strong, the belief that it is or will be satisfied by the world springs to life and takes the form of a conviction, and any reason, however transparent and feeble, will serve to protect the belief from intellectual scrutiny. The wish may not, of course, be conscious, and it could, in many cases does, introduce subjective distortions into reality by the mechanisms of transference and projection. Fantasy and illusion are the mental equivalents of a sanctuary, a refuge from a reality we feel we cannot face and so must deny. In fantasy and illusion, we make the world accommodate itself to our wishes, but we do this at a price. We resort in our waking life to the mechanisms entering into the formation of dreams, and in doing this, we place ourselves under the domination of a condition which weakens our sense of reality, which blocks our intelligence and impoverishes our powers of reasoning. And I was just like blown away that when I read that, because it just feels like it sums up so perfectly what is happening, or what is the goal of what is happening in many of these fronts. The projection onto Meghan specifically, the transference of what other people are doing and trying to make it seem as if that's what she's doing.
That's right.
The entitlement, this fear of a changing world, the people are not able to or don't want to accept the fact that things are different. Things are changing. It's a new world. And so it's this sort of this rejection of it, the wish that it weren't the case, and so the inability to even accept that it is, in fact, already here. You know, the fact that this illusion is something that we sort of subconsciously wish into existence, and in so doing sort of constrain our own minds. It's just like, wow, it's really, really brilliant.
It is something that up to this point, when I think of illusion, for me, it didn't go any further than just the illusion of
A magician.
a magician, and many really wonderful movies that I got to see that sort of that has a lot of illusionists. I think there was one, and there was all these really wonderful, amazing movies because, like, for whatever the reason, the power of so-called magic, it's one that I'm very fond of. I love a good magic, trick, supposedly, because, I remember for being 5 and being taken, wow, it's the most incredible thing. And it's still a wonderful thing that whenever I get to experience it or go to any of these shows, whether it's in Vegas or any place else, that my mother wishes that I would go. Yeah, well, I just like to go out and be entertained. So
What happens in Vegas?
oh well, never that.
Stays in
I
Vegas.
actually, no, it's not that kind of party at all, at all, at all. But yes, I love a good magic show, right? But I never at any time ever think or looking at people and say, oh, they are serving illusion. What they're doing is not what it is. I do think because I spend some time in the fashion industry and being around the fashion industry, I started it seeing the illusion of it, so to speak, because you have photo shoots where you've been like, sort of prepped to the gods, so to speak, looking stunning, looking beautiful, but that's not how you wake up. It's an illusion of this goddess they want you to be or they choose to make you look like. And yet there is people who actually think this is how you wake up out of your bed. This is, so, and you can see these people, they go to the room just to have that look. But they have no idea there is a team of 20 people make you look like the way you do. You couldn't even do it yourself. And there's that whole illusion that goes into that world, that make believe, even in movies, sort of, standing up in front of a green screen. And yet that, it transport you where you feel like, that actor or that actress or that scene is taking place, miles away when it's not. It's just at a sound stage, a studio. So I get it to that part. But at no time that I looked at the Royals and ever think that they were selling an illusion, in my opinion. But when you think, based on everything we all hear that Harry been through, the idea that, when you looked at Meghan, who many of us think that, oh, well, she's in that palace. And, you have an image in your mind, what that looks like, what that sort of living room looks like, or what that bedroom looks like. You have like your mind, because you're looking at a palace. And when you now find out where they are living, and you hear them say when Oprah Winfrey went to visit, says, they're not going to believe it. And to actually see that, and you realize this was all an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
This was all an illusion. It's an illusion. The fact is that, these people, regardless how hierarchy that you are, we all come to an understanding that you living certain way, or you do certain things, or you looks like, and then now to find out all of it was just an illusion. And that's how I am looking at. But is it wrong for me to see it that way? To start really looking at the royals as an illusionist family?
Well, the thing I think that strikes me as interesting is, I think you're right, but it's also thinking about how this word and what these authors are writing. A large part of it is as much in the minds of those witnessing the illusion as it is in those who are actually maintaining it. And it strikes me because on the one hand, this guy writes, he uses these quotes, the illusion is actually dimming your vision. It is actually not allowing you to see things as clearly as you might otherwise. And as a result, when you combine in the other quote he references, you're less free. But it actually makes me think of something I saw on Twitter of this person actually featuring someone else's comment. I think it was actually on Amazon on Spare. Someone who bought the book and read it, and he actually wrote in his comment on online was basically titled like an apology, and he wrote this note, effectively writing to Harry in this comment on the book, saying, I'm sorry because I had been one of those people who had been persuaded to take part in the hate and the lies and all of that. And now that I've read your book, and now that I've seen this explanation that you provided, it's sort of peeled back the illusion. It's actually helped me to see more clearly. And for that, I'm sorry for having partaken in that sort of that hate and that transference, that projection of distortion of reality. And I think that's the key thing to think about, is that this illusion is something that exists in each and every mind of each and every individual's mind in which it is happening. It's not just, oh, there's one person who's creating an illusion. It has to be perceived and believed. It has to tie back to the subconscious wishes. And that's the other thing, is that it's not really actively thought about or considered for those people who are seeing the illusion and believing the illusion. It's subconscious. It's something that they're just,
Right.
It's not even I want to think this. This just ties back. It reaffirms my values and beliefs of what I want the world to be like.
Charles, is that probably what and the question is for both of you. Is that what the problem that the royals are not having, and even the media themselves, in some aspect? I mean, I'm talking about the tabloid media. Is that the problem where right now the illusion that they have been able to put forward, people are starting realizing what the trick is and how the game is played, how that illusion works. It reminds me of a show they used to have. I can't remember what channel right now. It's a show actually. As I was curious about it, then I did not like it. I didn't want to see how the illusion is made, from the magic show. I wanted to enjoy what's presenting as it's presenting. Do you understand what I mean? And then now that I know, like, it's almost take away for what it was for me. And I'm thinking, is it fair to look at what the royals are doing really right now? When you see they're telling you, look here, in the media as well, look here, look there, like it's not happening. We are seeing it with that. Like, for an example, they spent a week try to trash talk about an incident that happened in New York that did occur. Okay. And I think the Sussex people was well articulate exactly what happened. They changing and try to tell you, no, this is not what this is. They tell you what it is that it happened, but yet now we are dealing with an accident that happened. We all know about the accident.
About
Sophie, right? We know that lady died, and yet it's as though that it did not happen. We're supposed to move on as it's like it's another day. When then we know if this same situation, and although it wasn't her car, it was the cortege, how they will call it, that was accompanying her that caused the accident. But if you were to see this would happen to Harry or specifically Meghan, they would have called for her to be in prison. They would have said, when are they going to arrest her? Like, it would have been her fault. Everything would have been her fault. They would not stop until that, they see her being arrested. Okay? And then later one says that, you know what? Oh, they found her. She didn't do anything. Remind me the same thing that they did when William's wife went to that visual thing that was happening in England because a girl lost her life. And she showed up when she should not have been there because they didn't want people there, from what I understand. And yet, the way they print the story, because in my opinion, and many people, that she break the law, and whose name that they put in the paper was Meghan. Do you see what I'm saying? This is how far they're willing to go on something like that. Could you just imagine it was reverse? And that illusion of that we are running there now, as I said again, the fact that Sophie supposedly is now in visiting some country to look at, what the facts are on whatever that, she wants to find out. On abuse in whatever the story is. But I'm like, this is the problem they have. How are you going to try to find out facts on things that's happening in your own home? You don't need to go that far to find out what is happening with people of color. You had one. Basically in your home that you could have looked at, you could have talked to her, you could have asked her, she would have told you. And this idea, the illusion that they are serving us as though that, they are for the cause. They are having these kids who are up onto their game and realizing, because you can't mess up with my generation or to younger generation at all, that somehow that you like us and you love us, and yet we know what you did to the princess that we feel like we can look at and be relate to. We know how you guys treated her, and yet now you want to come and see me, make me feel like you care, and I'm supposed to believe that? And you couldn't look at those kids' faces. They're like, yeah, right. And is that their problem that they're having right now? Because people can see through that illusion. Or is it wrong for me to see it that way? And that question, I put that question as well to you, Sussex Squad Nation.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that, in a lot of respects, that the veil has fallen from, what the media was supposed to be about. Because originally, and kind of the point of media was to be kind of the fourth estate, right? Is to be impartial and to speak truth. That's kind of the point, right? That was kind of one of the reasons why it was founded in the first place. But I think it's pretty easy to just see that there is certainly an agenda that they have, and that truthfulness is not the name of the game. That they are serving or self-serving. They do what they do in order to project their own power and to push their own agenda. And I think that more and more people are getting wise to what their tricks are. And, and I think now what, the greatest threat that they have is that they no longer have the only platform out there. That there's people like the Sussex Squad who can actually speak truth to power, and also can project their voices and much further than any time in history, frankly. So I absolutely do agree with you that, people, that the veil is falling, the illusion is coming to a close in terms of what these people are really about.
George, but to what end, though?
Well, I think the actions by either the royal family or the media and the increasing sort of alarm, as you said, the running of the bulls, the urgency that they seem to be operating with, I think makes even more sense when you consider that idea that it is part of a preservation of power, the maintenance of the illusion, but the fact that it kind of is a one-time deal. And just like you were saying with the kids that they're trying to have Kate take pictures with, or whoever take pictures with, is that once the illusion is revealed, once it's shown to be false, you don't go back. You can't get rid of that knowledge. You can't get rid of that insight in the person who you had previously been trying to sort of persuade otherwise. And I think that actually ties exactly to the other sort of journal for the word is actually political efficacy and political illusion. It's by Robert Weisberg. And he wrote that almost 10 years ago, Murray Edelman, and this is actually back in 1975, he said almost 10 years ago, so it would have been 1965, Murray Edelman observed that much of mass political imagery consists of beliefs based not on empirical reality, but on the needs and anxieties fulfilling personal, not political functions. As he put it, the lore about the state includes much that is plainly contrary to what we see happen, yet the myth is all the more firmly believed and the more dogmatically passed on to others because men want to believe it, and it holds them together. The proposition that the mass public usually brings to bear only the most limited degree of understanding on remote political matters has been well documented in survey and research literature. And so that very idea that it is something that they are so fervently pushing and so fervently passing amongst themselves, those who still are preserving the illusion, because it is fulfilling their personal needs. It's not because it's based on any reality. And so that's sort of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it is so easy for those who have that wish of having the world be a certain way to be able to say, yes, I'll just reaffirm that, even though it's clearly not based on any reality. But on the other hand, once that veil is actually punctured, you can't go back.
Wow. I actually think that's what made the next word so interesting, because it's almost feel like it tied in, because having that illusion lead to the pretext of prestige. So, Charles, how should we look at the word prestige?
Sure. So prestige was first used in 1829 from the Middle French. And it's interesting because the root of that actually is a conjurer's trick, an illusion. And it comes from Latin, which is, again, means a conjurer's trick.
All right.
So it's very interesting how all that kind of ties together. But there's two quite simple definitions to it. The first is standing or estimation in the eyes of people, the weight or credit in general opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is a commanding position in people's minds.
Mm. Wow.
So a quick little funny story about this. So I was looking for good examples and ways to kind of demonstrate what prestige is as it relates to the royal family. And I looked up royal prestige. It was just a quick little Google search. And what I found was hilarious, because apparently there is a whole multi-level marketing organization called Royal Prestige that's been defrauding people. And I was like, well, isn't this just perfect? So people can't, people are, there's all kinds of comments trying to understand whether or not these are actually legitimate or is it not legitimate. But anyway, the whole thing is that it's some multi-level marketing scheme that people can't really get their hands around in terms of if it's actually true or not. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny, just given the association. But when I looked in, I finally kind of dug in a little bit. Then after avoiding the dishware, I finally came upon, okay, well, what is it that I'm really trying to ask for? And what I'm looking for really is kind of how can we demonstrate the height of British power? Like, what does that actually mean? What do people think of when they think of prestige and kind of as it associates with the British royal family? And there was a phrase that was coined in 1921, and it was called "The sun never sets on the British Empire." And it goes like this. After World War I, when Great Britain's government took over many colonies from the losing Central Powers, the British Empire achieved its greatest extent, covering Canada, much of the Caribbean, the Indian subcontinent, Burma, Australia, New Zealand, and much of eastern and southern Africa, Egypt, Sudan, and parts of the Arabian Peninsula, as well as West Africa, as well as other various islands scattered across the oceans. So historians say that roughly 25% of the world's landmass was under British control. And that's basically, it's crazy, 25%. And so that is actually kind of where the idea that the sun would never really set on the British Empire, because indeed that was actually true. Every part of the British Empire actually always had some daylight around it because it was just so global in nature.
That's interesting.
Right? So that's kind of where that phrase kind of came from. However, what it was also meant to mean is that there was more of a figurative meaning, the idea that the British Empire would be an eternal system and that it would never suffer any kind of decline, which is kind of hilarious because just within a few years, Egypt and Ireland became independent. And then in the 70s, basically most of the once massive empire basically decided to have this own independent nation. So it didn't even last a century. But that is really kind of where the idea of, in terms of prestige, kind of where I think the British Empire kind of reached its zenith.
I see. George.
I was shocked by this word, honestly. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, that it means sort of this, and you have an amorphous understanding of, it's for people who are probably more important or more impressive.
I'm glad that you like it, that I choose that word.
I do. I think your selection for all of the words today, as always, every week, is excellent. It's a word that, honestly, the going and understanding where it came from and what it means, I found it hard to believe, because just to double it down on what Charles was saying, in terms of the etymology, there's this from the American Catholic Sociological Review. It's an article that's titled "Prestige and its Sociological Aspects," and it's just that he starts in the exact same way as we do, of just understanding where it even comes from, and that idea of the Latin meaning, literally about being the juggler, someone who is either a dice player, a rope walker, or even a strongman. And during the Middle Ages, the Latin authors were using this word to actually refer to deceptive juggling tricks.
Wow.
You know, like people who would they have their coins on the table and they put them under a cup and move them around fast, and they would show up in a different place. That was literally prestige. That's where it started.
Indeed.
And to think about how people want to have prestige, or they want to show up a certain way, and that's actually where it comes from. I find it kind of ironic, and also just funny. But the thing that I found actually really helpful in understanding it in terms of where we are today was actually this article. It was actually a book review. The reviewed book was "The Celebration of Heroes: Prestige as a Social Control System," and the review is by George C. Homans, and he wrote about the book that it is a book about the relations between prestige and control. For a person's behavior is controlled, among other things, by the degree of prestige others grant him and he grants to others. So really, prestige is this thing that's actually not something you have and own in and of yourself. You have because other people choose to give it to you.
Right.
And he then gives this definition, which I think is really helpful for me anyway, to see like where did it come from to where it is now. And he says, for the purpose of this analysis, prestige is the esteem, respect, or approval that is granted by an individual or a collectivity for performances or qualities they consider above average. And he gives as examples, among these performances or qualities, the author cites either sacrificing your life for the group, an abnormal performance in singing a Bach cantata, or, and I think this is exactly on point, nobility of birth. So that's how you get to the prestige. And I think this last bit is why I love why you chose this word, is that the reason the reviewer writes, the reason the author approaches the problem is that he believes that social scientists have agreed that three control factors in particular are important as a way of understanding the fundamentals of social stratification. And those three are force and the threat of force, wealth, and prestige. And so the author wanted to study this sort of, how do you grant each other this esteem and respect as a way of controlling how society is stratified. But I think the reviewer's final point is actually particularly important, is that those three things, the force or the threat of force, wealth, and prestige itself, they cannot be separated.
It reminded me what Maddie, who always have wonderful comment, and I don't recall the specific, when he talks about that prestige, so to speak, the royal family think they had, or people looked at that prestige that they all want to be a part of. And yet, here this woman turn it out. And they don't get that. Because when I looked at the word prestige, for the little time that I've been here on this earth, what I come to see it as, it's who you associate yourself with. Where you go, places you go, whether it's to the theater, whether it is brunch, at Cipriani, or the place where you shop, and the type of parties that you get to attend, the association of who's who that goes there, the fact that, you could walk in a party, with rope line, everybody's on the line, but you get in, and all that effect, that illusion, create a sense of prestige that people want to associate themselves with you. And I am thinking that is probably that kind of illusion, that kind of prestige that maybe perhaps that the royal thing they was unable to preserve, in my opinion. It's breaking down in a way that the people that was attaching themselves with that kind of illusion prestige, it's hurting them because they don't get it. Again, it's what Maddie say. How dare this woman to walk away from that? How dare Harry not to understand the prestige that he has to walk away from that?
Yeah, I remember that was an excellent comment, and the way you just articulated it, I think is perfect. And for me, it just a new thought as a result is that there's actually, when you think about where prestige came from versus where it is right now, it's almost as if there are two different types of prestige. There is the one prestige which is sort of based on the illusion, based on tricking people, which is exactly where it came from. And that's almost the illusion that the rest of the royal family is trying to maintain. They're trying to maintain this illusion that they have this prestige because simply of their nobility of birth. And that's what they got. That's what they deserve. But it is very different from the prestige as it has developed and come to be in modern times, which is that which is given by a group of people to someone for doing above average and admirable works, having those qualities. And that is exactly the difference between the prestige that the old prestige that the rest of the royal family has and the new prestige, the actual prestige that is earned and deserved that Meghan and Harry have.
That exactly, but this word, because Meghan and Harry in some ways didn't break these folks' prestige. They break it themselves. Mm-hmm. They break it themselves because when you think of what Harry was doing, in fact, I will argue, was really restoring the prestige that they think they had, or people think the royal family have, even by bringing Meghan on, someone that was actually really doing the work, not pretending to do the work.
Well, I think that's actually funny because I think the royals actually had prestige prior to that, but it was the other one. They had the tricking part. They had the illusion.
Right.
And I think that's just it, because if you look at the definition of prestige, is both of them. One is basically kind of this con game, and the other basically being being recognized for good work. So if you look at it in both of those two things, and you look back in history in terms of what has the royal family done in order to receive recognition, the list is getting shorter and shorter the longer and longer it goes. And to where we get to where we are today, which is they're simply vacant. There's simply nothing there. Versus, to your point, now you actually had somebody who came in who actually restored what it meant to be. And then it shone a light on the con game that's being played.
But it didn't have to be that way. They could have still played that illusion by welcoming this woman. They could have allowed her to do the work, because in some ways, they're the one that would have really, in some ways, getting the credit, because the work that they were doing was on behalf of the Majesty, the Queen. And now the King Charles would have been benefiting from. Do you understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. But when you think, and when I say that, Harry and Meghan was in a way restoring that prestige for them, because I truly feel like my mother's era during Diana, who's just was a goddess and who to me was everything, was breaking by what Charles did. Because up to that point, that's not what you do, right? And when you bring the mysteries that become the Queen today, and with everything that was surrounding around it, there's something had broken. There was a trust, there was a belief, there was something breaking. And there is people that didn't want to have anything to do with royals, and who made their own mind what royal is, until Meghan come in the scene all of a sudden that, many of the squaddies never care and probably still don't. But like the idea, the fact that, Meghan was there and have that kind of platform, and what we all believe that you can actually do with that platform. And the reality is, as I said again, whatever or how you perceive or you think of prestige, what Meghan was doing was incredibly prestigious and beautiful and wonderful. And again, like Harry said, she make it look easy, something that is not that easy. And I think that is the problem that, the royals and so-called, tabloid media are having right now, because now Harry and Meghan are bringing their own prestige.
Oh, I think that, to your point, I think that is at the heart of their issue right now, because they chose not to collaborate and be a part of that, and to actually benefit from the work that Harry and Meghan were doing, and to earn that prestige by association. And the very point here is that it is a fundamental mechanism of social stratification and social control. So if you are losing if you've punctured the veil, you've punctured your own illusion that has resulted in you losing the prestige that you may have had at one point through your own actions, and you forfeit the relationship with another who is actually earning prestige through their good work, and there's this sort of shifting of balance of where people's respect and attention and admiration is going. That is the tension, that is the conflict, the social conflict that is putting pressure on the existing social structure. And I think that's why Ruth's question, is this the end of the coronation? Is this the end of what this whole thing had been? Is it coming to an end? That's a valid thing to be asking.
To me, it's redefined what that is. Because again, if you had to look at prestige as something that, who you associate yourself to, I do believe it's both ways. When you think of who the royals are now associating to, the Jeremy, Clarkson, to
Piers Morgan, and to many more, that who is saying things you like, those are the people that you bought for lunch.
And you supposed to be God chosen? Please tell me which God is this one. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is it. And now they are running around, and in my opinion, they are everywhere. I've never seen, Kate, oh God, running around the way she's running around. She's left and right and everything. And I don't have anything against this woman. Like my brother, Baron like to say, I'm always expecting 30 to 60 to 90 days to actually see her. Now she's really running around doing something, but I don't know what that something is. And you have the Wessex, Sophie, that is, away asking questions about facts. I don't know facts of what. Do you know what I mean? To King Charles, who's getting ready to travel, to whatever places that he's about to travel, and God knows what Queen Consort, Jump Queen, mistress is doing. What is she's doing? And now they're talking about it, the fact that, because Kate wear pink and somehow upstage the king. But you're a king, for God's sake. Really? This is how low the standard is now for you? And this is the conversation. These people who looked at you as prestige and they want to associate to you. This is where the bar is. And then you guys don't understand why people are turning against you. Because it's like the illusion. The curtain have raised and we could see everything that's behind the stage. It's one thing you see what's on stage, what you're presenting to us. But we now got to see how the costume is put on. It's been held by duct tape. Do you understand what I mean? It reminds me of, many of the shows, sort of how that, the costume, you know what I mean? Being able to transform to this thing. And then you realize, wow, I could see the men and the women behind the mask. So where are we, people? Where are we? I think maybe it's time to take a break and worship with a very, very wonderful song. I think the song this week, it's incredible, if I said so myself. And
well, you do a good job picking it out every week.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoy it. For those of you who enjoy the music that we put on, we're not sponsored by any of these group or musicians at all. I'm just a girl who love music. I love all type of music, and I just enjoy it. And if I can dance, I love dancing, even if it's in my own bathroom, because I don't get to go to clubs to actually, dance. And that's not my thing. But I could have a party in my bathroom at any time of the day. So do we have a verse? Do you have a verse for us today?
I do. So it's actually 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 13 through 15. And it goes, "For such men are false prophets, deceitful workmen, guising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan himself disguised as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds."
Wonderful. So let's worship together on our first song, and we'll come back to end the service and give our, I think, to summarize, where is the next act to gonna continue taking us? And let's worship together.
But your love I hear resounding. This freedom I shall see. Yeah. No trouble can destroy my hope. But your scars have made me whole. Turning down all the voices of despair. On your promises I stand. I will not fear when the waters rise. I will not fear though I walk through fire. For you are with me. You are with me. You have redeemed my life. No trouble can destroy my hope. Your scars have made me whole. Turning down all the voices of despair. On your promises I stand. Declare, on your promises I stand. I will not fear when the waters rise. I will not fear though I walk through fire. For you are with me. You are with me. You have redeemed my life. Your grace sustains me. Your love, my victory. I'll walk the valley, trusting you. Your grace unfailing. Your love, my victory. I'll walk the valley, trusting you. I trust in you. I will not fear when the waters rise. I will not fear though I walk through fire. For you are with me. You are with me. You have redeemed my life. You have redeemed my life. Your grace sustains me. Your love, my victory. I walk the valley, I trust in you, Lord. Your love, my victory. I walk the valley, trusting you. Your grace sustains me. Your love, my victory. I walk the valley, trusting you. I will not fear when the waters rise. I will not fear though I walk through fire. For you are with me. You are with me. You have redeemed my life. You have redeemed my life. You have redeemed my
Great song. I just love it. I just love the words. It just you're all with me. We are with the Sussexes. And we know God is with us. And I know the Sussex squad. And now many people, even the Washington girls, are with us. So we are together in this because it is a good cause. It is a fight worth fighting for. So, Charles, George, how should we look at this week that's feel heavy, but it's continue teaching us it's not over. Every time they think they have it in the packet, something happened. Whether it's now looking at one by one each of those talking folks who have had the pleasure to go after Harry and Meghan one by one, they are falling. They are falling. When you looked at the accusations, allegedly, because everything we say here, it's alleged. We don't know. We don't, it's our own opinion on these matters. And we can be completely wrong from everything that we say. We don't have an expert here. We are not expert ourselves. But that is the only way we know how to interpret it as people that have a little brain.
Just a little one, though.
Just a little one, to look at things and say, this is not making sense. This is what making sense. Obviously, we're not here to change anybody's opinion and mind and tell them this is, take our words, And that's what's so beautiful about the squads, that, you can go and hear different opinions, in different channel. And I highly recommend that we support every single one of them, please. Because it is making a difference. When the media is starting paying attention the way they are, that there's an impact right there. So Charles and George, how should we close in this week, this Sunday, and starting the next week as we're looking at Act 2?
Well, for me, I think that the words today do a excellent job of centering of one's mind in thinking about how the rest of this act is going to play out, how we got to this point in the first place, and how it's going to continue to play out. And it kind of goes to the idea of, we as a species really do need to be paying attention to our history and learning from it. Because the fact of the matter is, what used to require a huge amphitheater to take place now takes place on our TVs and our cell phones, and we watch this sort of theater play out that draws on our worst nature as human beings. And it is our responsibility to be cognizant of the attempts to do that and to reject it, and to realize that at the very same time, it is those sort of attempts to use that sort of Coliseum-like approach to tabloid media or whatever it may be are part of a effort to preserve an illusion that reinforces a status quo, and that illusion itself, understanding the neighbor who may not be in the same place as you, it's important to remember that illusion is not necessarily something that they are conscious of, and it is more than likely playing on their fears of a changing world. And so that certainly requires a bit of grace, but it also speaks to the importance of having conversations and actually pausing and reflecting, because that illusion, that reality can break that illusion. And once it does, it's something that can't go away. And it is our choice to say, who do we actually look up to and afford our respect, our admiration, our esteem? Who is it that's actually prestigious is who we collectively choose to give that time and attention and those sentiments to.
Wonderful. Well said. Charles.
Sure. So the word that comes to mind is vigilance. I think we have to be vigilant in looking after each other. And as George had just mentioned, taking care of one another and understanding really what's at stake and then what the game is being played. We know that, the world is a stage, and that the powerful are trying to dictate a script to us. But just like Russell Crowe in that movie, we don't necessarily have to follow that script. We can do our own thing. We are our own best character. So with that, I think we need to just take responsibility for that. And then, as George had said, is just reach out and try and find the truth. And don't be scared. The truth is there. And I think that we have the responsibility to seek it out and then to project it in order to protect not just yourself, but others as well.
Thank you both. I think it's well said. But for me, I think you guys, say everything probably I ought to say. But I'm going to choose to go with the lyrics of our next worship song that I love. And I hope Sussex Squad, you love it too. And then you stay and worship at the end and you dance like I dance when I hear that song. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But we serve a God who does much more than we could ever imagine. Whatever happens, it's working. He's turning it around right now. I truly believe in that. I believe Act 2, it's where the devil comes out, try to destroy things. But what they fail to realize, what they didn't get, from all the illusion they've been serving, all that pretext of prestige, God is turning things around right in front of their faces. And because of that, we must stay vigilant. We must continue to pray for Harry's safety and his family. Because of they want to kill and they want to destroy. And it's not a game. They are scared. They are fear of what may come to the loss of that prestige, that illusion, and God knows what they may capable of doing. I have no insight to know or even say, but I'm just asking the question. We must pray, and we must pray hard for Dolia, for Archie and Lilibet, who will have to deal with that as well, unfortunately. And we'll hope that they don't have to. We'll fight so they don't have to. But we don't know. And for Harry's safety, for everybody who's involved, and as well as the royals and the press who now find themselves in a place that they have fear of their own. And for us, the Sussex Squads, who continue having challenges, whether it's personal, whether it's our own mental health, dealing with everything that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and how that affects us. And we will end this service by praising the queen of rock and roll, Tina Turner, who left us. But I'm sure right now she have a pair of heels somewhere up there and she's dancing. She is dancing. How fitted her, one of her last songs was "You Simply the Best." And I looked at the Sussex Squad. They are simply the best. I looked at Harry and Meghan. They are simply the best. We are the best in what we do. We are something they have never seen before. and history will tell the story. So I hope you guys enjoy the service. It's a bit long. And George, please leave us with prayer, and we'll lift up our wonderful and beautiful girl, Chochinelli, that I adore. I don't know you, girl, but I feel like I know you just by calling out your name. I feel like I know you. I hope you're doing well. It's so good to see you commented in some of the other platform. I hope you're taking care of yourself and you're doing great. So, Josh, please.
Dear Lord, we thank you so much for another week that we get to spend with each other, with loved ones, that we get to spend, hopefully, serving, working to make the world a better place. We ask you for the courage to face everything that is coming at us, and understanding that that courage is not about the absence of fear, but it is about the mastery of it. We ask you for the grace to recognize that for all of the hate and the lies that we see in the world, so much of it is a manifestation of someone else's fear, someone else's wish for perhaps something different for themselves. Give us the grace to know that, and give us the ability to truly reach out and connect and communicate and help pierce the illusion so that they can be freer.
Amen. So let's worship together. I hope you guys have a great Sunday morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. And we continue believe in the cause. We continue lift each other up, and we'll pray as hard as we can. We'll make as loud of noises that we can to make sure that, we change our tomorrow. It is important. Have a good Sunday. Love wins. Good day.
All right. Stand still. Clap. Stand still. Watch him turn it. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But we serve a God who does much more than we could ever imagine. Whatever happened is working. He's turning it around right now. Watch him work. All right. Watch him turn it. You got it now, church. Say, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But we serve a God who does much more than we could ever imagine. Whatever happened is working. He's turning it around right now. You are God enough to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it. You're God enough to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it. You're God enough to take what the enemy meant for
Listen, he's turning it around. It's working for my good. That's your part, that's your part. He's turning it around. Oh, it's working for my I need to see you turning up top. Say. He's turning it around. Working for my good. It's working for my good. Every lie that was told. He's turning it around. Every weapon that formed. It's working for my good. Do it like we in South Carolina. Say. He's turning it around. Turning it. He's turning it around. It's working for my good. It's working for my good. Working for my good. It's working for my good. Oh, hey. He's turning it around. Turning it up. He's turning it around. It's working for my good. It's working for my good. Yeah. Working for my. It's working for my good. Turning it up. He's turning it around. Oh. Turning it up. He's turning it around. It's working for my good. It's working for my good. Working for my good. It's working for my good. All right, 'cause you are God enough. Take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it. You're God enough to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it. You are God enough to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it for my good. All right. Stand still. Watch him turn it. One time. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Say that again. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Hey, Tony. He got no power. No, he got no power. Woo. But we serve a God who does much more. Oh, we serve a God who does much more than we could ever imagine. Whatever. That's it. It's working. It's turning it around right now. Somebody praise him like he's turning it. Somebody say yeah. Praise him like he's turning it around. What the enemy meant for evil,